Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Christopher Borders, Public Affairs Officer for the Idaho National Guard. Thank you all for coming to this morning's press conference. This morning, you'll hear brief remarks from our Commander-in-Chief, Governor Brad Little, as well as the Adjutant General of Idaho and Commanding General of the Idaho National Guard, Major General Michael Garshak. Following that, the State Army Aviation Officer, Colonel Christopher Burt, will provide a timeline of events leading up to this morning, and we'll end with a question and answer period facilitated by Lieutenant Colonel Nicole Washington, Commander of the 1st Battalion of the 183rd Aviation Regiment. It's important to remember that at this time there are many unanswered questions, and any speculation into the cause of this accident would be premature ahead of any official investigation. So for any unanswered questions this morning, the Idaho National Guard will be providing ongoing updates as information becomes available. So with that, I would like to introduce Commander-in-Chief Governor Brad Little.
Thank you. Well, to the people of Idaho, these are tough times. We need to remember that every day the safety of this country, the defense of this country, and all the incredible things the men and women of the Idaho National Guard do, that they're doing today. I was actually going to be at a place where they were helping keep Idahoans safe. But remember, their number one goal is to defend this country. And you can't defend this country if you don't train. And I just ask everyone to think about them. Everyone that serves, particularly the Idaho National Guard and what they do every day and the risks that they take, but also their families and their neighbors, and how critical it is that we continue to show support for them, particularly during this very difficult time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Governor. The sudden and tragic loss of 3 of our fellow Guardsmen is extremely heartbreaking to every member of the Idaho National Guard family. I've received numerous messages of condolence from many people here in Idaho and throughout the nation, and all of your thoughts, prayers, and support are sincerely appreciated and much needed. It is very comforting at such a challenging time to know that we have the care and support of so many. My immediate priority is to care for and assist the families of our fallen aviators and to provide any support necessary to all who are suffering as we move forward through this tragedy. Thank you.
Good morning. At approximately 6:50 p.m. last night, February 2nd, 3 Idaho Army National Guard crew members departed Boise in a UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter on a routine training flight in our Nap of the Earth training area. The crew checked in several times with our flight operations during the flight, with the last contact occurring at approximately 7:45. Shortly after 8 p.m., the Air Force Rescue Coordination Center, located at Tyndall Air Force Base, Florida, contacted us stating that they were receiving an active emergency locator transmitter signal associated with our aircraft. They were able to give us a grid which was in the vicinity of 3 Point Mountain, east of Boise in the Danskin Mountains. This gave us a starting point to search. We immediately launched our emergency response plans in an effort to locate the aircraft. At the same time, there was another aircraft in the area which tried to locate the missing aircraft, but had to return to Boise after the weather began to deteriorate rapidly. At that time, an Idaho Aviation Group ground crew was dispatched to the last known location, along with personnel from Idaho Mountain Rescue. At approximately 11 p.m., the weather improved enough to launch another aircraft to continue the search in conjunction with our ground crew and Idaho Mountain Rescue. At approximately 12:15 a.m. this morning, February 3rd, the air search and rescue crew located the aircraft and confirmed that there were no survivors. Elmore County Sheriff has secured the site, and recovery operations will be ongoing through the day. The Idaho National Guard and Elmore County Search and Rescue will conduct this task. At this time, the cause of the accident is unknown. The Army Aviation Safety Center has assigned a team which will lead the accident investigation. We expect this team to be in Boise tomorrow afternoon. This morning, my office has been flooded with countless messages from members of our community here in Idaho, as well as from friends and colleagues from across the nation. On behalf of each of them, and on behalf of the Idaho Army Aviation Group, I extend the deepest of sympathies to the families, loved ones, and friends of these amazing Americans. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we're going to open it up to a question and answer period, but it's important to remember that there's an upcoming investigation, as well as the names of the pilots involved have not been released as we go through the family notification process.
Like Lieutenant Colonel Borders said, at this time there is a lot unknown. As the commander, one of the greatest things about aviation is that we are, I think, a fairly extremely close-knit unit. That also makes it very hard. So, our thoughts and prayers and concerns are obviously with the families, but I will do my best to answer any questions that you have right now without speculation.
What is your name and title?
Lieutenant Colonel Nicole Washington, and I'm the 183rd Aviation Battalion Commander.
And it seemed like this was a tough terrain where they kind of went down and made it really difficult. Can you describe kind of more about the location, the snow, the mountains, and because it happened, I guess, south of Lucky Peak?
Exactly. Similar to what Colonel Burt said, it was about 15 miles southeast of here, past Lucky Peak, in an area that we refer to as 3 Points. Fairly high terrain, fairly mountainous terrain, but it is terrain that we train in routinely. There was weather last night. There was snow. We do know from the aircraft that tried to locate them that was out at the same time. They tried 3 different times through low passes to get to that area, but the fog, the ceiling layer coming down combined with snow made it untenable for them to be able to get in. So again, no speculation on what caused the accident, but we do know there was bad weather and rough terrain.
And what kind of training mission were they doing last night, conducting?
We do every 3 nights out of the week. We have routine training missions, and last night was routine training in mountain areas with some emergency procedures, and then also an evaluation. 2 of the aviators were actually our senior instructor pilots, and one was a fairly experienced pilot.
And last August, I did a story with you guys about conducting numerous search and rescues in mountainous terrain in the backcountry with these Black Hawk helicopters. So that sounds like that was a training. But how important is that mission? And because last August I did a story where you guys saved several different people.
For us, the training is extremely important because, again, as you know from covering the story, search and rescue is one of the many versatile mission sets that we're able to accomplish, and we do it quite frequently in Idaho. So it's important for us to go out and train to standard and train to be able to operate in adverse conditions. We start out from very junior pilots. We pair them with senior pilots, and a lot of our senior pilots including all three of these aviators that were flying last night, were experienced in search and rescue techniques, experienced in flying in adverse conditions and bad weather.
What was the last contact that you had with them, and then prior to the crash, was there any mayday or any type of contact?
Yes. The last known contact that they made with our flight operations was at 7:45 p.m., where they called exiting their last LZ, and they were en route back to Boise, was their plan. And at that time, based on information that we were able to retrieve from ATC here at Boise, they did receive a ping from their aircraft on their aircraft transponder, squawking a normal code that we would use and not an emergency code. It was approximately 20 minutes after that that Air Force Rescue Coordination Center notified our flight operations that their emergency locator transmission was going off.
So there was no transmission verbally from anyone in the helicopter?
No, there was no mayday, no request for an emergency, no declaration of an emergency.
And so what, on scene right now, what information are you trying to gather?
On scene right now, we are fortunate to have the 160th Special Operations Troop that happened to be in Boise, Idaho training. They are equipped with a Chinook helicopter. So we have sent them out today along with 2 of our safety investigators, 2 of our medical personnel, civilian Elmore County search and rescue assets, and 2 other civilian additional medical assets to secure the site, secure and recover the bodies of the aviators, bring them back here, and then again, like Colonel Burt said, the Air Force Safety Center will be on site tomorrow, and they will conduct the investigation, and they will do the determination on what caused the accident. So the purpose of today is just to recover the crew members and get them back to Boise safely.
Can you talk more about what's on the helicopter itself as far as the equipment to help them navigate through difficult weather situations like this? And also explain maybe what was unique about this area that you're training in, why that's a very popular spot to be able to train pilots to become more experienced.
Okay. So the aircraft itself, not any in particular safety measures, but all the pilots were wearing night vision goggles, which allows them to see better at night. Last night, even with their goggles, the illumination was pretty low, so it would have made it a lot more difficult. When you combine that with bad weather, snow, precipitation, it can cause quickly deteriorating conditions to appear a little bit better than they may be. As far as why that area is important for us to train, similar to the question I answered before, search and rescue operations is something that we as a unit conduct for the state of Idaho. We've conducted multiple search and rescue operations to rescue local Idahoans, and so it's important for us to put ourselves, in those conditions, in those positions, to know how to train, because we understand that whenever we go out to save someone, it's not going to always be ideal conditions. We will have to land in mountainous areas. We will have to go out in bad weather. So for us in the Army to try to train as we fight, and train our aviation personnel to be the most proficient, so that we can go out and provide that same support to the state.
Did the weather turn unexpectedly bad at that point in time, or was that unexpected, or was that something, again, that you welcomed because of the training opportunities?
Well, part of what we do before we launch any mission is a detailed risk assessment. And so the pilot, the air crew fills out the risk assessment. They are then briefed, and they brief their mission to a senior pilot that goes through every phase of the mission before they approve it, and then it goes through one more level of approval. So there was forecast showers in the area, and again, from what we know now, whenever they called back returning to Boise, the weather had started to slowly deteriorate. But what we've noticed that sometimes out in the backcountry, it can start to deteriorate pretty quickly. And again, with some of the high terrain the low illumination can come in quite fast.
Were there other Black Hawks training that night, or was this just a solo helicopter?
There was another aircraft out at the same time, not in the same area. And again, once our flight operations got the call from AFRCC, our flight operations contacted that helicopter. And they tried at least 3 times in 3 different paths to go, to traverse some low ground to try to get to their last known location. And again, the snow was pretty heavy and the ceiling was coming down, so they tried almost, maneuvering at a hover, which is low altitude and low airspeed. And they finally had to return back to Boise because of fuel constraints. And then we were risking having another crew out there also in a bad position.
Did you know these members personally, and what kind of impact does this have on the Guard here?
I did know them personally, not only as their commander, but through deployments as well. And again, 2 of them were high-time pilots, 2 of them were instructor pilots, and it leaves a tremendous, indescribable void in our aviation community. We are very close-knit. We don't have fixed assigned crews, which means each pilot flies with so many different pilots, so they've flown, these 2 have pretty much flown with every single aviation crew member. And they are an intricate, necessary part of our community, and they will be missed, and there's no way that we'll be able to replace or fill the void that they've left.
Map of the Earth means very low flying, is that right?
That's low-level flying,
Low-level flying.
normally, anywhere from 200 feet above the ground and below.
And what, were they flying very low at that point, that you know of?
As of right now, we don't know. We don't know their flight profile. All indications with them leaving their last LZ en route back to Boise would indicate that they would have not been conducting Map of the Earth to try to traverse over that mountain range. But again, with the ceilings and fog layer coming down, they may have been forced down to lower levels. So without having any information from the data recorders, which the Safety Center will recover, and knowing their exact flight profile, it's hard to tell what altitude they were operating at.
Can you offer a little more specifics on their flight time? When you say very experienced, are you talking 3 years, 5 years, 10 years?
One of the crew members, the most senior crew member, has been flying for well over 15 years. The next senior crew member flying well over 10 years. Probably the most junior crew member had been flying for 5 years. So thousands of hours between the crew, and I wouldn't give an exact number right now because I'd be making something up, but extremely, extremely experienced. One of the crew members was what we call our standardization instructor pilot, so he's the instructor pilot of instructor pilots.
Is there a threshold at which the weather determines that you can't run a training exercise like what was going on last night?
There is, and so when I reference the risk assessment that we fill out, a very large portion of that is based around weather. And so for pilots, we have what we call weather minimums. So there's certain weather requirements that we have to meet to be able to fly, to even be able to take off. Weather has to be at a certain visibility and ceiling level. And so most pilots know you are briefed and approved for certain weather requirements, and once it starts to deteriorate below that, you either end your mission or return to base. And what we try to, I think what we've communicated in our community is that there is no mission so important that you push weather. I'd rather have a crew land safely and will drive out to get you as opposed to pushing bad weather to try to get back.
At liftoff last night, was that report anywhere near the threshold of calling it off?
No, not at this point.
Will this incident suspend any operation that you currently have, or will there be an adjustment to how you operate?
As of right now, flying operations are ceased. Again, because we can't speculate, we don't know the cause of the accident, whether it was weather-related, maintenance-related. or something else happened, we've been required to pull fuel samples from all of our aircraft. And so until our aircraft are cleared, we won't be launching any organic flight operations out of our facility. And then going forward, we eventually will have to get back to flying once we are cleared. But that will be with, counseling, open communication. We will always, certainly, anytime an incident occurs, we take a step back and pause. We do a lot of internal reflection, whether it's adverse conditions, weather conditions, what we can do better going forward to reassure the pilots that still have to go fly, still have to go support the state and the people of Idaho. And so as an organization, yes, we will look at everything that we can do to improve, anything we could have done differently to reassure not only our aviators, our air crew members, all of our soldiers and their families that we're doing things as safely as possible.
Okay, we've got time for one more question. Is that all?
Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the press conference. Like we said, we will provide information as it becomes available. Once the families have been thoroughly notified, we will release those names via press release to your news outlets. So thank you all for coming.
Any idea, Chris, when that will be?
We typically like to allow at a minimum 24 hours for that to circulate. So, thank you.